This video clip exposes hidden efforts to rebirth the Black Liberation Army as Black Lives Matter. But first, let's listen to the president's answer to that NBC reporter. Then lastly, we'll investigate a Harvard connection to the mayhem on America's streets today.
Just real quick, at the crux of the theory is this belief that you are secretly saving the world from this satanic cult of pedophiles and cannibals. Does that sound like something you are behind?
Well, I haven't heard that, but is that supposed to be a bad thing or a good thing? I mean, you know, if I can help save the world from problems, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to put myself out there. And we are, actually. We're saving the world from a radical left philosophy that will destroy this country. And when this country is gone, the rest of the world would follow. The rest of the world would follow. That's the importance of this country.
What if this satanic cult of pedophiles and cannibals is precisely what we've just uncovered? And does it form the basis of the radical left philosophy the president just warned us about? Was the hatred first brought here from across the Atlantic Ocean, as some type of royal insurance policy against American self-representation? Is this why radical leftists always seem to be above the fray, untouchable by what we were told was a one-tier justice system? Were they anointed by the crown to lord over us, in some way? How long has this been going on?
Springboard for race war, fake race crime and performance art at Harvard.
At least since the 1960s, when Blair's and Bernardine Dawn could literally do no wrong as the weathermen planted bombs in over 2,000 government installations, which resulted in not one day of jail time for either Ayers or Dawn, for the bombings. On the courthouse steps, declared innocent yet again, Ayers famously bragged, "Guilty as sin, free as a bird, God I love America." What powerful people were protecting the weather underground? How about Bill Casey, CIA director under Reagan and Bush from 81 to 87, who famously once said, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false." Isn't this video exposing disinformation? Is this disinformation program he mentioned the basis of the relentless barrage of fake news which is tearing this country apart? It's public information that in 1961, on the Harvard campus, the CIA brainwashed Ted Kaczynski, who later became the Unabomber. Is this part of the disinformation program? Did this plot originate with the CIA? Or was it Harvard's invisible college? If Ayers and Dawn were on the right side of this disinformation program, is that how they became, and remain, darlings of the left? Let's listen to Bernardine Dawn, of The Weatherman, in 1970 declare a state of war against the United States.
A federal grand jury in Detroit today charged the 13 top leaders of the Weathermen with plotting to bomb public buildings in Chicago, Detroit, New York, and Berkeley, California. The Weathermen are the militant faction of the Students for a Democratic Society. Only one of the 13 is now in custody.
At 7:30 this morning, KPFK received a call from a woman identifying herself as a member of the Weather Underground.
Hello. I'm going to read a declaration of a state of war. This is the first communication from the Weatherman Underground. Kids know the lines are drawn. Revolution is touching all of our lives. Freaks are revolutionaries, and revolutionaries are freaks. If you want to find us, this is where we are. In every tribe, commune, dormitory, farmhouse, barracks, and townhouse, where kids are making love, smoking dope, and loading guns, fugitives from American justice are free to go. Within the next 14 days, we will attack a symbol or institution of American injustice.
Power belongs to the young people and the black people in this country. Come on, we gotta fight it out. We gotta build a strong base, and someday we gotta knock those motherfuckers who control this thing right on their ass.
Is that declaration still in force? And was it throughout the 8 years of the Obama administration? Didn't Dawn, with that declaration, renounce her own citizenship? She also said, "Freaks are revolutionaries and revolutionaries are freaks." Doesn't she support our findings that the Satanic Garden was built by modern-day descendants of the perverts, pedophiles and cannibals from the ancient world? Dawn also used the words, "Fugitives from American justice are free to go." Did you know, San Francisco DA, Chesa Boudin, was the first to end cash bail for all criminal cases? This is such a radical ideology because it releases hardened dangerous criminals back onto the street. And it's spreading to a city or town near you. What else do we know about Chesa Boudin? He was raised like a son, by Ez and Dawn, because his parents, Kathy Boudin and David Gilbert, were jailed for the 1981 Brinks truck robbery. That Nyack, New York robbery and murder was a combined operation between the Weather Underground, thought at that time to no longer exist, and the Black Liberation Army, which supposedly ceased to exist as a backlash to that very robbery. Let's see how violence on the streets today, mainly by Black Lives Matter and Antifa, was hatched into reality, at Harvard, in 2009, 4 years before the official start of the Black Lives Matter movement. On July 16, 2009, there was an arrest, steps from Harvard Yard, which empowered Obama to crack the whip on the backs of Americans for his remaining 7.5 years in office, with his false claim that the Cambridge police acted stupidly, and it proves that America was still a racist nation. What interesting timing. If you recall, 25 days into Obama's first term, Ez and Dawn published the book, Race Course Against White Supremacy. We've seen white supremacy and usury of black Americans, celebrated in the Satanic Garden, and learned the weathermen were the true white supremacists who perfected the dark art of manipulating black Americans into joining their conscripted armies. In case you missed it, listen to this weatherman's words.
Power belongs to the young people and the black people in this country. Come on, we gotta fight it out. We gotta build a strong base, and someday we gotta knock those motherfuckers who control this thing right on their ass.
You see? Race division was a hallmark of the Weather Underground strategy from day one. If you recall, Twin Towers also represent divide and conquer, which is the only way a tiny minority can overtake a huge and powerful nation, like America today and Russia in the last century. Speaking of conscripted, was this arrest at Harvard a scripted event? Were we fooled by world-class performance artists plying their trade? Let's first peel back the veneer and explore the details the media and the Obama White House kept hidden from view. Gates was with his driver, returning from Logan Airport and his trip to, guess where? China. What was he doing in China? Gates claimed on his affidavit, his front door was jammed, and entered through the rear door. This proves he did not forget his keys, as was reported by Obama. And, the part you will never hear, is, rear entry, sodomy, is described by the occult with the term a ninth gate. The year was 2009, and Gates was the man who made rear entry with another man. The ninth gate. These perverts and pedophiles do not miss a detail when they plan an operation well in the future. Let's continue. The arresting officer was named Crowley, which harkens back to one of the most famous occultists of all times, Aleister Crowley, known in part for his depraved sexual magic tricks. He died in 1947 and was often described as the wickedest man in the world. In fact, Crowley was thrown out of Italy, in the 1920s, for being the wickedest man in the world. Was Cambridge police officer Crowley scripted into this Gates affair to be framed as the wickedest white man in the world? Crowley was responding to a 9/11 call and was therefore required to enter the house, identify anyone in the house and ensure there was no home invader hiding in some room of the house. That was his job. When he arrived, the front door was wide open. Why? Those who scripted this did not want Gates opening the door and allowing Crowley to enter. That would have been a form of invitation. And, had Gates actively not allowed him in, Crowley's duty would have required that he overpower Gates and immediately put him in cuffs. So, the choice was to do what Gates claimed on his affidavit, that he left the door wide open so the maintenance man could come right over and fix the door. Let's continue. Crowley walked through the open front door and Gates, sitting in his living room, started to berate Crowley for entering his home uninvited. This placed Crowley in a defensive position as he struggled to follow protocol, and asked Gates to identify himself. After some argument from Gates, who claimed loudly that he lived there, he eventually flashed his Harvard badge. Was this just one more way that Gates was showing his middle finger at Officer Crowley? The officer was required to see a driver's license, since a Harvard badge is meaningless to the Cambridge police as identification. Eventually, after more argument, Gates provided his real license. Was Gates demonstrating the new way that Black Americans were being trained to talk back at the police? Was this a type of performance art? Before we talk about the person who placed the 9/11 call, there was an odd little detail about their relationship to each other, Gates and Crowley. This information could not have been known publicly at the time of the arrest, but is relevant to your broader understanding of what went down that day at Harvard. Gates had done, and continues to do, work with DNA and hosted and co-produced several PBS shows tracking African ancestry using DNA tracing. While learning about DNA, Gates flew to Dublin to verify his own family law, that he and his relatives were part Irish. And this was verified by his DNA test. Henry Louis Gates Jr. has Irish as well as African American heritage. That DNA test as well as a DNA test from Officer Crowley revealed, later, that not only did they both have Irish ancestors, but that they were in fact related to one another. Both Gates and Crowley are descendants of the same 4th century Irish warlord named Neil of the 9 Hostages. More names. Neil became O'Neill, and today, there are about 3 million people who are descendants of this Irish warlord. He made himself so prolific by always having 9 wives, at any given time. Is this relationship yet another occult signature? Were they both scripted into what looks like a giant fraud against the American people? Now, what about that 9/11 call to the Cambridge police? The story is that a passerby saw 2 black men trying to force the front door open and promptly went to the neighbor to report the incident and to initiate a 9/11 call. But here's another place the story falls apart. If a stranger did not happen to be there, no call would have ever taken place. That neighbor, and likely other neighbors, would have not been alarmed to see Gates on his own front porch. And if Gates had not vanished from the front door to make rear entry, the alerted neighbor might have looked out the window and said, "Oh, that's Henry." Gates needed to be out of view before the passerby's knock on the neighbor's door. So, wasn't this well-timed intrusion also part of the deception? Also, if a person is really alarmed about a crime in progress, don't they usually call the police on their own cell phones? So, once Crowley had a positive ID on Gates and verified Gates was indeed the resident at 17 West Street, things calmed down. But, when Crowley was about to leave, which would have ended the incident, Gates started to ramp up his verbal attacks on Crowley. When Gates started to insult the mother of Officer Crowley, the cuffs came out. Why was Gates egging him on? And why would anyone insult the mother of a stranger? Wasn't that a terribly dehumanizing thing for Gates to have done? All that, after returning from China, which may have been 15 hours on the plane. Wouldn't most people have preferred the police officer to leave so they could start to recuperate from such a long trip? Once they were on the front porch, by chance, someone was there to take the picture that bounced around the globe millions of times. Was it that one image that Gates was struggling so hard to create? Did Gates study performing arts at Harvard's Invisible College? Look at Crowley, who's on the right side in the photo, appealing to Gates to calm down. Is this a Harvard professor putting on a live demo for his students? Has this kind of struggle become the new norm, today, to resist every word and every action from every police officer, no matter what? Did Gates talk to someone in China about his upcoming celebrity status? Before we watch Obama's claims about this fake race hate crime, which you now know more about, one final note about Aleister Crowley. Crowley broke ground in the occult world, making the bizarre and evil much more mainstream. Wasn't that exactly the impact created by William Shakespeare's productions? And today, Crowley is believed to have been a British intelligence MI5 agent. Is everything evil in the world really just a royal rollout? Here's Obama, appearing before the facts were in.
What's been reported, though, is that the guy forgot his keys.
False.
Jimmied his way to get into the house.
False.
There was a report called into the police station that there might be a burglary taking place.
Accessory.
So far, so good, right? I mean, if I was trying to jigger into, well, I guess this is my house now, so it probably wouldn't happen. But let's say my old house in Chicago. Here I'd get shot.
Anti-police.
But so far, so good. They're reporting. The police are doing what they should. There's a call. They go investigate what happens. My understanding is, at that point, Professor Gates is already in his house.
True.
The police officer comes in. I'm sure there's some exchange of words.
Yelling.
But my understanding is that Professor Gates then shows his ID to show that this is his house.
Eventually.
And at that point, he gets arrested for disorderly conduct.
Obscene screaming.
Charges which are later dropped.
True.
Now, I don't know, not having been there and not seeing all the facts,
Why talk?
what role race played in that.
None.
But I think it's fair to say, number one, any of us would be pretty angry.
Agitating.
Number two, that the Cambridge police acted stupidly.
Anti-police.
In
Agitating.
arresting somebody when there was already proof that they were in their own home.
Fools.
And number three, what I think we know separate and apart from this incident is that there is a long history in this country of African Americans and Latinos
Agitating.
Being stopped by law enforcement disproportionately.
Anti-police.
That's just a fact. As you know, Lynn, when I was in the state legislature in Illinois, we worked on a racial profiling
Agitating.
Bill because there was indisputable evidence that blacks and Hispanics were being stopped disproportionately.
Not disproportionate to the number of crimes committed. You may have just witnessed one of the greatest, and most destructive, examples of performance art in American history. More evidence that this was a false flag operation. The date chosen, July 16th, is an occult date, when old dynasties end and new eras begin. For example, on July 16, 1918, Tsar Nicholas II, and his Romanov family, were massacred by the Bolsheviks, ending a 300-year dynasty and reign. On July 16, 1945, the Trinity nuclear test succeeded, and the atomic age had begun. On July 16, 1969, the Apollo 11 placed a man on the moon, ending the era of humans as Earthlings and beginning the space age. On July 16, 1999, John F. Kennedy Jr. was reported killed in a plane crash off Martha's Vineyard, ending the age of Camelot. On July 16, 2009, steps away from Harvard Yard, the Black Lives Matter movement began with the staged fake race hate crime arrest of a Harvard professor. Was the date chosen an encoded way to signify the end of the age of the white man? It was also the 62nd birthday of Assata Shakur, convicted cop killer, who happens to be the inspirational leader of Black Lives Matter movement. Was this a birthday present? From the Oval Office? A combined Obama administration and Weather Underground operation? Did the infamous beer summit set the detonator on a new kind of powderless bomb? Did the weathermen concoct an invisible incendiary device with far more explosive power than any using the traditional black powder? Did it go off in Ferguson, New York City, Chicago? How about Seattle and Portland? Was it just practice for a much larger incendiary device? Can it be diffused before it's too late? Belair's and Bernardine Dawn have shown genuine loyalty to Assata Shakur, and even named their two sons, Zayed and Malik, after Zayed Malik Shakur, Assata's husband, who died of his injuries the day they were involved in the murder of a New Jersey state trooper in 1973. So, you'll see, the creation of the false flag faked arrest was far more than just a birthday present to the hero of Belair's, Bernardine Dawn, and by extension, Obama. Could it have also involved a remake of the Black Liberation Army? Assata Shakur was a leader in the Black Liberation Army, which went off the radar with their 1981 failed Brinks truck armored car robbery. So, did their partners in that crime, the Weather Underground, owe Assata Shakur a huge favor? And did they pay that favor in spades, in the first July of the Obama administration, with the rebirth of the Black Liberation Army, the BLA, as the BLM? Was the false flag arrest of Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates Jr. the incident needed to marshal support for this new Marxist organization? But, was the original name to be the Black Liberation Militia? A militia is more local than an army, and one can see, the structure of Black Lives Matter clearly allows for local control and local influence. So, what clues might we get from the Second Amendment? A well-regulated militia and its ability to legally bear arms is protected by the Second Amendment? Is that also the plan of Black Lives Matter? To replace the police with their armed, peace force? If they form legitimate, well-regulated militias, even constitutional conservatives would be obliged to support their rights to arm Black Lives Matter. But, had they not chosen a rollout name that shames white people, before the public rollout in 2013, how successful would they be? Would a free people, and particularly white people, give their families hard-earned money to support the Black Liberation Militia? And tweet using the hashtag Black Liberation Militia? To get on board that bandwagon? Do they know that funds given to BLM via Act Blue are going directly out the back door to the DNC and the Weather Underground? No, probably not. When will they learn? When you invite Satan to dinner, you're placing yourself, your family, and your whole country on the menu.
Satanic Takeover. Who are these people?
So, who are these people? And, for whom are they really working? Because, they're certainly not working for we the people. May God save America. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and share widely. For more intriguing info on these, and other, secrets, check out the one-of-a-kind book, Fortress Harvard, Think Tank for Royal Revenge. You can get a copy of the book, at Barnes & Noble and at Amazon.com, or, as a PDF download, at patriotsword.com. Download your copy of Fortress Harvard, Think Tank for Royal Revenge, today. And, to stay in touch, and be advised of new videos, visit patriotsword.com. If you liked watching this video, and want to see more, please consider donating. Donations are appreciated, very helpful to the effort, and can be made at patriotsword.com. Thanks, again, for watching, and stay tuned for more clues.